Hello and welcome to PolyCosm. My name is Christina and today we're going to be continuing the RavenShroud Guild series where we've previously concepted a Thieves Guild hideout. So today we're just going to be modeling the entire asset library in Blender, and in the future we're going to be texturing it all in Procreate and using Unreal Engine 5 to put all of it together as a mock-up for a game or animation. In this particular video we're going to model the rest of the asset library. If you guys remember, last time I modeled all of the modular assets, whereas this time we're modeling more unique assets that aren't quite modular. Also, I'll touch on unwrapping briefly. Alright, let's get to it. So I went over modeling techniques in the last video, so I won't be as technical this time around. I think I'll just start with one room and sort of work my way out. We already have most of the hallway fleshed out except for the spike pits, so let's start there. Knowing that I've already modeled the floor with a cylindrical hole in it, all I need to do is basically just fill in the blanks. I found this nifty little reference piece that feels pretty medieval and stylized, and I think I'd like to model something like this. As always, I'm keeping the references on screen using PureRev as I model, just to make sure that I'm not missing any important elements or forgetting what the original concept art looks like. I'm trying to keep in mind the poly count since we're going for a low poly kind of look for everything. Especially since Omerjon's going to be painting the textures in Procreate on his iPad, we don't want to make the mesh dense at all. Because, unwrapping becomes sort of a nightmare when it is. Also, I have no idea how Procreate handles really dense meshes, to be honest. If you're interested in watching his videos on texturing 3D models in Procreate, definitely check out the previous video we released. He actually used one of the 3D models we created for this series, so it's a perfect example. Anyway, now that the pit of death is completed, let's move on to the main room. Just to make it easier for future Christina, I've sectioned off each room, so I've moved further away from the modular assets just to kind of make that distinction, and we'll be adding a ground plane per room as well. I want to sort the library of contents in a methodical way, so I'll put all of the knickknacks, gadgets, bowls, lamps, glasses, books at the bottom of the plane, and put the bigger models in the back. I'm trying to keep future customers in mind as well, so I don't want it to be just one big mess, but kind of organized into categories, if that makes sense. So as you saw, I started with modeling just the smaller things like glasses, ashtrays, and so on. Later on, you'll see that I'm constantly making sure that the scale is correct by bringing in our human model, or just placing the objects onto the modular assets that we've already modeled. I'll let the time-lapse play out for a bit and catch you when I've completed modeling all of the smaller assets. And there we go. So I'm going to model the chandelier, which is basically just a bunch of cylinders with a solidify modifier set to it. As for the candles and candle holders, I'm going to offset it from the origin point while in edit mode. And outside of edit mode, I'm going to Alt D, create instances and just rotate them around by pressing R for rotate and Z. Remember that we're creating instances because it's just a lot easier to model one and have it copy onto the rest. Same goes for the texturing. If they're all instances, they'll all receive the same texture. If you want to make the model its own copy, you just press the little number under the object data properties. Since candles can be copied around the scene, I just made sure to separate one for easier accessibility later on. I'll use the chains that I created in the previous video of this series and just adjust the curves manually, and then just copy it around to make the full chandelier. Let's continue with the rest of the room. For the couches, I'm going to model these by manipulating the vertices. And once I have my shape, I'll use F for fill and E to extrude that plane. Then, using a cube as a boolean shape, control numpad minus if you don't remember, I cut out some space for the cushion. I may not get the best geometry this way, but it's sort of a fast and dirty way of working. I'll also use simple spheres for the cushion buttons. No need to go super detailed with the geometry when most of the detail will honestly just come from texturing alone. I mean, if you are going for a more realistic look, perhaps, but we're going for a stylized look similar to the texture Omajam painted in the previously mentioned video. So that is the living room. Let's do the training and weapons room. Man, I've been really looking forward to modeling the dummies actually. I'll actually use some of the modular assets for the base, and for the dummy itself, I thought I would just be creating the silhouette of the sack first and then extruding it, adding some loop cuts and bevel edges and blah blah blah. But it just ended up looking awful. So instead I just remeshed that horrible shape and kind of smoothed it out in sculpt mode. It's a lot easier to do this sort of thing as a sculpt than fighting with the modeling tools, although this does end up becoming pretty dense like geometry wise, so I'll probably have to use the free software Instant Meshes, which makes it stupid easy to just remesh and get good geometry. I highly recommend it. So yeah, add some Tauruses for ropes and some pickpocketing pouches and we're done. Our friend Gordon Neill actually wanted to help model something and he chose to make the weapon rack and was kind enough to record the process as well. So I'm going to let the time-lapse play out for a bit. We normally work in Blender for this channel, but I thought it would be nice to kind of show a slightly different workflow using a different software. In his case, he's using Maya, but the same workflow applies to Blender really. Gordy actually works as a professional 3D artist, so he really knows his stuff and is super wary of his geometry and keeping it clean and professional, seeing how most of his models actually will be used for production purposes. That's why I thought it would be nice to include how a real 3D modeler works and not just my super messy workflow. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the time lapse and we'll move on to the alchemy room and the vault room. Alright, so this room is going to be all about little trinkets, cogs, pages, materials, and so on. I don't think it'll be super interesting, so I'll time-lapse through most of it. I think I'll take this opportunity to just talk nonsense like I always do. So you guys have probably noticed that we've been very quiet the past few months. We're not moving on from the channel, I swear. We've both just been super swamped with work for months on end. It's that goddamn Christmas crunch that always happens every year. Everyone's just scrambling to get done as much as possible before Christmas. Luckily, it's sort of all slowing down now, and we're actually taking a week off, which has been really nice. In the new year, I want to take on less projects and kind of put aside some more time to do VR related stuff like VR sculpting, and kind of do more of my personal illustrations and producing a lot more content for PolyCosm, and finally finish that goddamn tutorial I've been working on for like a year now. Also, I just received my 3D printer a few days ago and I just cannot wait to try it. I want to kind of take you guys through the whole process of sculpting and modeling in VR, or just in another software, and printing out that model and potentially painting it. I think that would be super fun to do on the channel. I haven't really seen any other channels kind of do like a full workflow thing, so I think it'd be really cool to cover that. You tell me, what do you guys think? Would any of that like be interesting to you, or do you kind of want that kind of content? Anyway, I think I'm nearing the end of the modeling process, so I'll just let the time-lapse play for one last time. See you in a bit. And there we have it. That's all of the assets for the project done. One last thing I want to do before finishing this video is just to kind of go through each individual asset, and with each model I'm going to select all faces in edit mode, and with you choose Smart UV Project. Then under the UV editing tab I'm going to create a new 2K UV texture. That way I can easily see if the projected textures work properly, or if they're warped and I either need to work on the model a bit more or do a more manual unwrap job. If you want more information on this workflow or how to texture paint in Blender, definitely check out this video. Or alternatively, if you prefer working in Photoshop and updating the texture in Blender in near real time, check out this video. Otherwise, that's all of our assets completed. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and all of the support we've received this year. In the next video in the series, Omurjan is going to cover painting these assets in Procreate by using the incredibly cool new 3D feature that they have added. Of course, there are so many assets here and he can't show the process of painting them all, so I'll choose just a select few. And since this is now tradition, here's one of our most recent Ripley photos. Has she not grown so much? She's massive! Ripley is doing really well. I think we'll have to do like a Ripley focused vlog one day. Anyway, see you guys in the new year. Oh, and Merry Christmas! Bye!